All right, today we're tackling a big one, the Old Testament. Now, if you've ever tried to read it, you know it's less like a single book and more like a whole ancient library. It's this epic, sprawling origin story, and honestly, it can be pretty intimidating to even figure out where to begin.
And that's a totally fair question. I mean, you crack it open and you're suddenly wading through genealogies, ancient laws, poetry, prophecy. It is so easy to get lost. So our goal today is to find the through line, that central plot that holds this massive collection of stories together. We're going to find the forest for the trees.
You know, think about your favorite movie or book. The backstory changes everything, right? Well, the thing is, the Old Testament isn't just an origin story. In a lot of ways, it's the origin story that has shaped how we even think about stories. It sets the stage for everything that follows, explaining how the world got to be the way it is.
And just take a look at this timeline. This shows you the epic scale we're dealing with. The story starts with the creation of the entire universe, and then it zooms right into the super intimate stories of a few families. Then it pulls back out to the dramatic birth of a whole nation, the rise and fall of kings, the absolute heartbreak of the kingdom splitting apart, and then finally, this glimmer of hope for restoration. It's a huge, dramatic arc with incredible highs and devastating lows.
So, to really get a grip on this whole thing, you have to start at the foundation, and that foundation is the book of Genesis. The name itself literally means origin or beginning. This is the essential backstory. These are the seeds that will eventually grow into that massive forest of the entire biblical narrative.
And wow, it kicks off with maybe the most famous opening line ever written. In just these 10 words, the entire stage is set. We get the artist, the canvas, and the very first brushstroke of a masterpiece. This one sentence establishes time, space, matter, and the one who brought it all into being. It's huge.
And this whole story unfolds through these fascinating and, let's be real, deeply flawed people. These are not your squeaky clean heroes on a pedestal. Not at all. You've got Abraham, a man of incredible faith who also lies to save his own skin. You've got Jacob, this total trickster who ends up literally wrestling with God for a blessing. And then there's Joseph, the dreamer sold into slavery by his own jealous brothers. Their stories are gritty, they're real, and they are so human.
Okay, so this brings us to a really important point that trips a lot of people up. We've got these ancient, profound stories, but how are we supposed to read them? Are they literal history? Are they beautiful poetry? Something else? This question can be a major roadblock for anyone trying to read this today.
So, which is it? Because let's be honest, the lens you pick here, whether you see it as history, poetry, or myth, is going to color how you see everything else that follows. And the wild thing is, brilliant, faithful people have landed on completely different answers to that question. So let's just explore a way you can think through it for yourself. You know, a really helpful way to frame this is to picture your entire worldview as a Jenga tower. The blocks way down at the bottom, those are your core, non-negotiable beliefs, the stuff that if you pulled one out, the whole thing would come crashing down. The blocks higher up are still important for sure, but maybe they're a little more movable. So when we look at Genesis, the question isn't just, is this true, but also, how foundational is this? Where does this specific block go in my tower?
The point is, you can see the creation story as literal, 24-hour-day history, or as profound theological poetry, and still believe it's true and has authority in your life. The real key is deciding which beliefs are the foundational blocks in your tower and which ones aren't. You don't want to let a disagreement over a secondary issue topple your entire faith.
Okay, so no matter where you land on how to read those opening chapters, is there a big idea that runs through the entire Old Testament? Oh, absolutely. And that big idea is a concept called covenant. And I'm telling you, getting your head around this one word is like finding the master key that unlocks the whole story.
So what exactly is a covenant? Well, think about it this way. A contract is usually about exchanging goods or services. It's about stuff. But a covenant is about exchanging yourselves. It's a deep, binding promise that's all about forming a lasting relationship. And this is the main way God relates to people all throughout the story, by making and keeping these powerful relational promises.
And just check out the massive scope of this very first major covenant. God makes this promise to Abraham, saying, "And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." This was never just a private deal for one family. Right from the very beginning, the plan was always bigger. It's global. The whole point of this relationship is to bring blessing to the entire world.
And this promise to one guy and his family, that's just a starting pistol. The
The story shows this amazing pattern of expansion, kind of like ripples spreading out in a pond. So let's trace how this one promise to a family becomes the blueprint for an entire nation and even a kingdom.
You can literally see the progression right here. It starts super small, with a covenant made with one man, Abraham, as he's looking up at the stars. Centuries later, boom, that same promise expands to an entire nation at the foot of Mount Sinai. And then it finds its political expression in a kingdom through the covenant made with King David. It's one story, one promise, just expanding in ever-widening circles.
You know, there might not be a single line in all of Genesis that sums up the big idea better than this one. This is Joseph, talking to the very same brothers who sold him into slavery, and he says to them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." It's this mind-blowing idea that even the most messed up, painful things we do to each other can be woven into a much larger story of redemption. So there you have it. That's the grand sweep of this epic origin story. It's about messy beginnings, unbreakable promises, and this radical idea that even the worst parts of our stories can be redeemed for a greater good. It's a powerful narrative, and it really leaves us with a huge question to chew on. How might an origin story like that change the way we see and live out our own?